Commander Hyanwu gripped the metal railing of his command chair as the massive alien fleet dropped out of hyperspace right in front of them. The bridge lights dimmed automatically as the computer systems tried to process what they were seeing. These weren't just ships. They were floating cities made of some kind of crystal that seemed to bend light around it. Holy ... whispered Navigator Duhayan from his station. Sir, there are 12 of them. Each one is at least 3 kilometers. Long Hyanwu had been commanding the UHSF Taigok for 5 years, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. His destroyer was barely 200 meters long, designed for patrol missions around Earth's outer colonies. Now they faced something that looked like it came from humanity's wildest science fiction dreams. Communications, any response to our standard greeting? He asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Sujin's fingers danced across her console. Sir, they're not responding to any of our frequencies. Wait. ... I'm getting something now. She paused, her face going pale. Sir, they're demanding our immediate surrender. They say we're trespassing in Galactic Council space. The bridge fell. Silent, except for the steady hum of the ship's engines. Every crew member was thinking the same thing. When did human space become someone else's territory? Tell them we'll consider their terms after they explain why they're in our space. Hyanwu replied, his voice carrying the calm authority that had earned him his command. The alien response came back in less than 30 seconds. But it wasn't through normal communication channels. Instead, the lead ship projected a hologram directly onto the Taiguk's bridge. The figure that appeared was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and eyes that seemed to glow with their own light. I am War Commander Zethlock of the Zephyrian Imperial. Guard, the hologram spoke in perfect English, though its voice had an electronic quality. You primitive beings have exactly 60 seconds to power down your weapons and prepare for boarding. Your species will be evaluated for integration into the Galactic Council's servant classes. Hyanwu felt his blood run cold, but not from fear, from anger. These aliens had just threatened to enslave humanity without even trying to communicate properly first. 60 seconds? Hyanwu stood up slowly. That's not much time for a conversation. There is nothing to discuss, Zethlock replied. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Your ship is a toy compared to our vessels. Submit now, and your death will be quick. Behind Hyanwu, Jinho was checking his tactical displays with, Growing alarm, Captain. They're charging their main weapons. Energy readings are off the charts. Those cannons could crack a moon. The view screen lit up as the massive alien dreadnought's forward weapons began to glow with deadly energy. The other ships in the formation were spreading out, clearly preparing to surround the lone human vessel. Hyanwu looked around his bridge at his crew of 23 men and women. Most of them were young, fresh out of the Space Force Academy. They'd signed up to explore the stars and protect human colonies, not to face down an alien armada. But he could see something in their eyes that made him proud. They weren't backing down. Sir, said Chief Engineer Minsu over the intercom, our experimental stealth system is ready. It's never been tested in combat, but today seems like a good day to find out if it works, Hyanwu finished. He turned to face his crew. Listen up, everyone. These aliens think they can just show up at our door and threaten our families. They think we're primitive. They think we're weak. He paused, letting his words sink in. Let's show them what humans do when someone threatens our home. All hands battle stations. Implement Ghost Protocol. The bridge erupted into controlled chaos as every crew member rushed to their emergency positions. Alarms blared throughout the ship as weapons systems came online, and the experimental stealth drive began its startup sequence. Ghost Protocol activated, announced the ship's AI in its calm female voice. All crew, prepare for emergency maneuvers. Taigok suddenly vanished from every sensor in the alien fleet. The advanced stealth technology, developed in secret labs on Mars, bent light and energy around the ship, making it invisible to even the most sophisticated detection systems. On the Zephyrian command ship, Zethlock stared at his tactical display in confusion. Where did they go? He demanded. His sensor officer's voice was shaky. Sir, they just ... disappeared. Complete sensor blackout. Meanwhile, Hyenwoo was executing a maneuver that would have been impossible without the stealth system. Using the ship's momentum and minimal thruster burns, he guided the Taigok in a wide arc around the alien formation, positioning it directly behind the three largest dreadnoughts. "Plasma torpedoes loaded and ready," reported Jinho, targeting their engine sections. "Fire," Hyenwoo ordered quietly. 6 experimental plasma torpedoes launched simultaneously, each one carrying enough destructive power to level a city block. They struck the rear shields of the alien ships before the Zephyrians even knew they were under attack. The results were devastating. The alien shields, designed to deflect energy weapons from the front, were completely unprepared for rear attacks. All 3 dreadnoughts erupted in brilliant explosions that lit up the darkness of space like miniature suns. As the Taigok decloaked and came about for another attack run, Hyenwoo opened a channel to the surviving alien vessels. "This is Captain Hyenwoo of the United Human Space Force. You came to our home uninvited and threatened our people. Called us primitive, but you're the ones running away. Consider this your only warning. Stay away from human space." The remaining 9 alien ships, suddenly faced with an enemy they couldn't understand or predict, made the decision that would echo through galactic history. They turned and fled into hyperspace, their commanders already composing reports about the impossible humans who fought like demons and disappeared like ghosts. Hi. Admiral Veltar's 6 eyes were bloodshot from staring at the holographic display for 12 straight hours. The Chromian war leader had commanded fleets across 17 different star systems, conquered 43 worlds, and never once retreated from battle. But the footage from the human encounter had him questioning everything he thought he knew. About warfare, the massive council chambers on Nexus Prime hummed with nervous energy as representatives from dozens of alien species watched the battle recording play out again. Each time the human ship vanished from sensors, the room fell silent. Each time those devastating torpedoes found their mark, alien military commanders flinched. "Run it again," demanded War Marshal Grixith, his 4 arms crossed in frustration. The Decian's reptilian features were twisted in confusion. His species had ruled through military might for over 1,000 years. Docked, but this made no sense to him. Veltar sighed and restarted the footage. "Watch carefully this time. See how they position themselves. That destroyer captain didn't just attack, he studied our formation for exactly 17 seconds. Identified the weakest point in our defensive arrangement, then executed a maneuver. That shouldn't be possible with their technology level." The hologram showed the moment when the human ship disappeared. Several alien observers leaned forward, their various tentacles, claws, and appendages twitching with interest. "Impossible," Grixoth muttered. For what felt like the 1,000th time, no species fights like this. They turned their own vessel into bait. 1 small ship against 12 dreadnoughts? It's madness. "That's what I thought too," Veltar replied, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "So I decided to study these humans more carefully. I accessed their communication networks, decoded their historical records, analyzed their military tactics." He paused, his expression growing darker. "What I found is far worse than one lucky battle." The holographic display shifted, showing a 3-dimensional map of Earth with glowing red dots scattered across its surface. Each dot represented a major conflict from human history. "These humans have been at war continuously for over 3,000 years, Veltar announced to the shocked chamber. "Not against outside invaders like most species, but against each other, as they call it human nature." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the assembled aliens. The idea of a species that fought itself was almost incomprehensible to most galactic civilizations. "Surely you're exaggerating," interjected Council Speaker Zixara, her purple tentacles writhing nervously. The octopus-like being had led the Council for over 2 centuries and had never encountered anything like this. Velta's response was to zoom in on one of the red dots. The hologram now showed a mountainous region covered in snow, with small figures moving across the landscape. This is from their Korean War, fought on their home planet about 70 years ago. Watch this engagement carefully. The display showed human soldiers vastly outnumbered, holding defensive positions on a frozen mountain. Enemy forces poured up the slopes like a dark tide, but the humans refused to retreat. The temperature was minus 30 degrees, Veltar narrated. They had limited ammunition, no air support, and were facing odds of 20 to 1. Any rational species would have withdrawn to fight another day. Instead, the hologram showed the human soldiers fighting with desperate courage, using everything from rifles to bayonets to rocks when their ammunition ran out. Some fought even after being wounded, continuing to fire until they collapsed. But this isn't even the most disturbing part, Veltar continued, highlighting a specific section of the battlefield. Look at this soldier here. The display zoomed in on a single human figure standing at a narrow mountain pass. Private Dehan was barely visible through the snow and gunfire, but his position was clear. He was alone, facing an entire enemy battalion advancing up the pass. This human named Dehan volunteered to stay behind when his unit retreated, Veltar explained. He held this mountain pass alone for 6 hours against an entire army to buy time for civilians to evacuate from the village below. He knew he would die, but he stayed anyway. The chamber watched in stunned silence as the lone human figure continued fighting, even as enemy soldiers swarmed around his position. When his rifle ran out of ammunition, he used his bayonet. When that broke, he threw rocks. Even when mortally wounded, he kept fighting until the very end. "This cannot be normal behavior," whispered Grixeth, his usual arrogance replaced by something that looked suspiciously like fear. "I thought the same thing," Veltar replied grimly. "So I studied more of their conflicts. The Battle of Thermopylae, where 300 humans held off an army of hundreds of thousands. The Siege of Stalingrad, where humans fought house to house for months in freezing temperatures. The Defense of the Alamo, where humans chose death over surrender." More holographic displays flickered to life, showing battle after battle where humans had chosen to fight impossible odds rather than retreat or surrender. "They have a saying," Veltar continued, "death before dishonor." They literally preferred dying to losing. But it's more than that. They preferred dying to letting others suffer. That soldier at the mountain pass wasn't even protecting his own family. Those were complete strangers in that village. The implications of this revelation hit the council chamber like a physical blow. Several alien representatives actually stepped backward, their various forms of eyes widening in shock. Council Speaker Zixara's tentacles had gone completely still, which for her species indicated extreme stress, as surely this is an isolated case, one mentally unstable individual? "No," Veltar said firmly. "It's their pattern. Their entire military philosophy is based on these principles. They train their soldiers not just to fight, but to die for complete strangers if necessary. They call it duty, honor, sacrifice, concepts that most species only understand in abstract terms." He pulled up more data, showing human military academies where young soldiers learn these principles. They don't just teach tactics and weapons training. They teach something called moral courage, the willingness to do the right thing even when it means certain death. War Marshal Grixeth was pacing now, his forearms gesturing wildly. "This changes everything. We're not dealing with a normal species here. These humans are. They're like a virus. A warrior virus that infects everything it touches with this madness." "Exactly," Veltar agreed. "And if they make contact with other species, if they start teaching these concepts to our subject races..." The chamber fell completely silent as the full implications sank in. The Galactic Council's entire power structure was based on the assumption that conquered species would eventually accept their fate and integrate peacefully. But what if they learned human concepts of resistance and sacrifice? "Recommendation?" asked Zixara, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. Grix's reply was immediate and decisive. "We must eliminate this threat before they spread their madness to the rest of the galaxy. Immediate military action. Full fleet deployment. Complete extermination." Around the chamber, alien heads nodded in agreement. For the first time in galactic history, the Council was truly afraid of another species, not because of their technology or their numbers, but because of their willingness to die for something greater than themselves. The war against humanity was about to begin. Colonel Myung pressed her eye against the rifle scope, watching the alien army move through the smoking ruins of what used to be New Busan Colony. 3 days ago, this place had been home to 50,000 people, families, children, elderly couples who had spent their whole lives building this community on the edge of human space. Now, it was a graveyard of twisted metal and burning buildings. Through her scope, she could see the Zephyrian soldiers advancing in perfect formation. Their crystalline armor gleamed in the afternoon sun, and their energy weapons hummed with deadly power. They moved like they owned the place, which made Mi-young's blood boil. Colonel whispered Sergeant Timon from his position behind a collapsed wall, "We should retreat to the secondary position. There are 3,000 of them, and only 30 of us left." Mi-young didn't take her eye off the scope. Her remaining soldiers were spread out across the ruins, hidden in carefully prepared positions. Most of them were kids, barely out of basic training. They'd volunteered to stay behind when the evacuation order came, knowing full well what it meant. "Negative," she replied quietly. "The civilian transports are still loading at the spaceport. They need another 20 minutes. She could hear the fear in Tame's voice, but also something else, determination. "Colonel, with respect, we can't hold them for 20 minutes. Not against those odds." Mi-young finally looked away from her scope and met his eyes. Taman was bleeding from a gash on his forehead, and his uniform was torn from the morning's fighting. But he was still here, still ready to fight. "Then we'll make 20 minutes feel like 20 hours, she said, activating her tactical network. "All units, this is Colonel Mi-young. Alamo Protocol is now in effect. You know what that means?" Across the ruins, 30 human voices responded with quiet confirmation. Alamo Protocol was something every human soldier learned but hoped never to use. A last-stand defense where survival wasn't the goal, buying time was. "Make every shot count," Mi-young continued. "Remember why we're here. Those transports are carrying 8,000 civilians, mothers, fathers, children who are counting on us to give them a chance to live." The alien army was getting closer now. Mi-young could see their alien faces through her scope, pale blue skin, glowing eyes, expressions of arrogant confidence. They expected this to be easy. They expected humans to run. "Here they come," she whispered into her come. "Execute Trap Sequence Alpha." The first surprise came when the aliens reached the colony's main street. Hidden explosive charges placed days earlier, detonated in a carefully planned sequence. The blasts didn't just destroy buildings, they collapsed them in specific directions, creating barriers that forced the alien army into narrow channels. "Beautiful," muttered Corporal Hajin from her sniper position. "They're bunching up just like we planned." The second surprise came when the aliens tried to clear the debris. Human soldiers emerged from hidden positions throughout the ruins. Not with standard military weapons, but with improvised tools of war that the aliens had never seen before. Tadashman charged out of his hiding spot, carrying a makeshift spear tipped. With a Zephyrian energy cell he'd salvaged from the morning's battle, the alien technology, jury-rigged to human ingenuity, crackled with deadly power as he drove it through an enemy soldier's armor. "That's for my hometown," he shouted, pulling the weapon free and spinning to face the next target. Nearby, Haijin had abandoned her sniper rifle in favor of a captured alien energy weapon. The Zephyrian plasma rifle was designed for their physiology, but human adaptability had allowed her to modify it for her own use. Each shot burned through enemy armor like it was paper. "These weapons are amazing," she called out, dropping two. "More aliens with precise shots." "Why don't they build them better?" "Because they've never fought anyone who fights back," Mi-young replied, switching to her sidearm as her rifle ran dry. The battle became a chaotic dance of death through the ruins. Human soldiers popped up from hidden positions, fired a few shots, then disappeared back into the rubble before the aliens could respond. When they ran out of ammunition, they used knives. When the knives broke, they used rocks, metal bars, anything they could find. The aliens had never faced anything like this. Their military doctrine was based on overwhelming firepower and technological superiority. But humans weren't fighting like a conventional army. They were fighting like cornered animals who had nothing left to lose. Private Seojun, barely 19 years old, tackled a Zephyrian soldier twice his size and brought him down with nothing but a combat knife in pure determination. When 3 more aliens tried to help their comrade, Seogen detonated a grenade he'd been carrying, taking all 4 of them with him. Seogen screamed, but there was no time to mourn. More aliens were coming. Myung watched her soldiers fall one by one, each death buying precious seconds for the civilians at the spaceport. Her tactical display showed 17 soldiers down, then 20, then 25, but they were still fighting, still holding the line, Colonel. Taemin's voice crackled over the cum. He was bleeding from multiple wounds now, leaning against a broken wall for support. Evacuation complete. The last transport just left the atmosphere. Myung felt a surge of fierce pride. They'd done it. 8,000 civilians were safe. Flying away from this nightmare toward the inner colonies where they could rebuild their lives. All remaining units, she announced. Mission accomplished. Time to send our guests a farewell message? She reached for the final detonator, a device that would collapse the remaining structures in the colony center. The explosion would take out most of the alien army, but it would also kill any humans still in the area. It's been an honor serving with you all, she said quietly. Same here, Colonel, Taemin replied. See you on the other side. Myung pressed the detonator. The explosion was visible from orbit, a brilliant flash that lit up the colony site like a small sun. When the smoke cleared, most of the alien army was gone, buried under tons of rubble. A few human survivors melted into the wilderness, carrying portable radios and enough supplies to continue guerrilla operations for months, high above the planet. Captain Dong-Han watched the explosion through his ship's viewscreen. His small battle group of 6 destroyers faced a Zephyrian fleet of 40 vessels. But the ground battle had given him an idea. All ships, he announced over the fleet. Come, we're not fighting to win. We're fighting to hurt them so badly they'll think twice about attacking human worlds. What followed was a space battle unlike anything in galactic history. Human ships used ramming attacks, deliberately overloading their reactors to create massive explosions, and suicide runs that crippled enemy vessels 10 times their size. The destroyer Sol rammed a Zephyrian battleship at full speed. Its captain, Commander Park, broadcasting a message to the enemy fleet. This is what happens when you threaten our families. The Incheon overloaded its fusion reactor and used it as a weapon, taking out 3 enemy ships in a nuclear fireball that lit up the system. When the battle was over, the human fleet was gone, but so was half the alien armada, the surviving. The Zephyrian commanders stared at the wreckage in shock, trying to understand what they'd just witnessed. For the first time in galactic history, a primitive species had made the mighty Galactic Council pay a terrible price for their aggression. And across human space, the message was clear. If you want to fight humans, you better be prepared to lose everything. Engineer Sora wiped the sweat from her forehead as she stared at the alien energy weapons spread across her workbench. The captured Zephyrian laboratory on Titan Station buzzed with activity as dozens of human scientists worked around the clock, tearing apart alien technology and rebuilding it better than the original designers ever imagined. Holding up a glowing power crystal. Look at this energy matrix. They're only using about 30% of its potential. Research Chief Jae-soon looked up from his own workstation, where he was modifying alien shield generators. His hair was messy, and his eyes were bloodshot from 3 days of non-stop work, but his excitement was infectious. The power coupling is all wrong, he said, pointing at the alien weapons core. Their technology is too conservative. They're so worried about safety margins and efficiency ratings that they're missing the real possibilities. Sora nodded, making rapid modifications to the weapon's internal structure. That's because they've never faced extinction. They build for efficiency, not desperation. When you're fighting for your survival, you push everything to its absolute limit. She connected the modified power crystal to the weapon's firing chamber and stepped back. The entire device began to glow with an intensity that made the original alien version look dim by comparison.
Stand back,
she warned, aiming the weapon at a test target made of the same crystalline armor worn by Zephyrian soldiers. She pulled the trigger. The beam that emerged was 3 times more powerful than anything the original designers had achieved. It didn't just penetrate the target, it completely vaporized it, leaving nothing but a small crater in the reinforced wall behind. My God, whispered Dr. Chang from the propulsion team. If we can do this with their weapons, imagine what we can do with their ship engines. Across the laboratory, other teams were making similar breakthroughs. The alien shield technology, originally designed to deflect energy weapons, was being modified to absorb and redirect that energy back at attackers. Propulsion systems that had remained unchanged for centuries were being rebuilt to achieve impossible speeds. The problem with the Council species, Sora explained to her team, is that they've been comfortable for too long. When you dominate the galaxy for thousands of years, you stop innovating, stop taking risks. Within weeks, the first human ships equipped with hybrid technology began appearing throughout the war zone. The UHSF Bizan emerged from hyperspace near the Rigel, systems sporting energy weapons that could punch through any known shield. The destroyer Guangzhou tested its modified engines by outrunning an entire Zephyrian patrol squadron, appearing and disappearing like a ghost. But the real breakthrough came when Captain Lee discovered that human intuition could push alien technology beyond its programmed limits. While alien pilots relied on computer calculations and safety protocols, human pilots trusted their instincts and pushed their modified ships to perform maneuvers that should have been impossible. Watch this. Captain Lee demonstrated during a training exercise, spinning his fighter through a barrel roll while simultaneously firing on 3 different targets. The alien flight computer is screaming warnings at me, but I can feel what the ship can handle. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Colonel Boonzhou was leading a very different kind of operation. His mission wasn't to fight the Council directly, but to find their conquered species and teach them something they'd forgotten how to resist. The Quillian homeworld had been under Council control for over 3,000 years. The species had once been proud warriors, but centuries of slavery had broken their spirit. They worked in the Council's mines, harvesting crystals for alien technology, accepting their fate as an inferior race. We can show you how to fight back, Byung-ho told the Killian resistance leader, a scarred veteran named Thok, who still remembered the old stories of freedom. Fight back? Thok's 4 eyes blinked in confusion. With what? They have energy weapons, battle cruisers, orbital platforms. We have mining tools. Byung-ho smiled and pulled out a simple explosive device made from mining equipment and alien power cells. Sometimes the best weapons are the ones your enemy doesn't expect. Over the following months, human military advisors spread throughout Council territory, teaching guerrilla tactics to species that had forgotten how to fight. Quillians learned to use their mining tunnels as bases for hit-and-run attacks. The Valdris, a proud warrior race that had been defeated in their first war against the Council, learned to adapt their honor-based combat to human psychological warfare. You see, Byung-ho explained to Valdris War Chief Kron during a planning session, honor isn't about dying gloriously in a hopeless charge. True honor is about living long enough to protect what matters most. War Chief Kron, a massive reptilian warrior with ceremonial scars covering his arms, had initially resisted the human approach. His people believed that a warrior's worth was measured by how he died, not how he lived. But my ancestors fought with honor for 1,000 generations, Kron protested. They faced their enemies in open battle, weapon to weapon, strength against strength. And where did that get them? Byung-ho asked gently. Your people are slaves now. Your children grow up serving the Council instead of learning their own culture. Is that honor? The question hit Kron like a physical blow. He looked around at his fellow warriors, seeing the shame in their eyes. Their traditional way of fighting had failed them when it mattered most. What would you have us do? He asked quietly. Fight smart, Byung-ho replied. Use every advantage you can find. The Council expects you to charge at them with your traditional weapons. Instead, we'll teach you to strike from the shadows, to use their own technology against them, to make them afraid of every shadow on every world they control. The transformation was remarkable. Within months, the Valdris had become masters of stealth warfare, using their natural strength and speed in ways their ancestors never imagined. They would appear out of nowhere to destroy Council's supply convoys, then vanish back into their homeworld's deep forests before reinforcements could arrive. Soon, Rebellion spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Species that had been conquered centuries ago began remembering what freedom felt like. The Council found their empire fracturing as former subjects embraced humanity's philosophy of adaptive warfare and never-surrender resistance. On the Council world of Nexus Prime, emergency sessions were called daily as reports poured in from across the galaxy: slave revolts, guerrilla attacks, supply lines being cut, and most terrifying of all, the growing cooperation between different species. The humans are teaching them to work together, reported General Vexcar, his voice filled with dread. Species that have been enemies for millennia are now fighting side by side against us. In the depths of space, Admiral Eugen's fleet prepared for the final assault on the Council's fortress world. Her ships were crewed not just by humans, but by representatives from dozens of species who had learned to fight back. Quillian engineers worked alongside human technicians, Baldrus warriors, trained with human marines. Former enemies had become brothers in arms, united by their shared desire for freedom. All ships, this is Admiral Eugen, she announced over the fleet communication system. Today, we don't just fight for humanity. We fight for every species that refuses to bow down to tyranny. Let's show the Council what happens when the galaxy learns to fight back. The final battle was about to begin. The Council was about to learn that their greatest mistake wasn't underestimating human technology or tactics. It was underestimating humanity's ability to inspire others to be better than they ever thought. Possible President Yunji walked slowly to the podium in the Grand Assembly Hall on Earth, her footsteps echoing in the massive chamber that had been built in just 6 months to house representatives from across the galaxy. The war was over, but the real work was just beginning. She looked out at the incredible sight before her, 60 different species sitting together in the same room. Many of them former enemies who had been killing each other just months ago. The Zephyrians, with their crystalline blue skin, sat next to the furry Quillians they had enslaved for centuries. The proud reptilian Valdris shared seating areas with the tentacled Deshans, who had once been their bitter rivals. The old council ruled through fear, Yunji began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's advanced translation systems. They conquered worlds, enslaved entire species, and told everyone that this was the natural order of things. We propose something different: cooperation through strength. In the front row, she could see some of the most unlikely transformations. War Commander Zethlock, the same Zephyrian who had demanded humanity's surrender in that first encounter, now wore the simple uniform of an engineering advisor. His glowing eyes had lost their arrogance, replaced by something that looked almost like humility. "We learned something during this war," Zethlock had told her in a private meeting the week before. "Our technology was superior, our ships were bigger, our weapons more advanced. But we built them to dominate, not to protect. Humans build everything with one question in mind: how can this help us save lives?" Beside him sat General Veltar, the Chromian admiral who had first tried to understand human warfare. His 6 eyes were focused intently on President UNG as she spoke, occasionally taking notes on a tablet that contained battle strategies from dozens of different species. Former enemies now work side by side, UNG continued. The Zephyrians, once proud conquerors, now serve as engineers in our new alliance, using their crystal technology to build hospitals and schools instead of weapons. The Visians have become our greatest explorers, their warrior culture channeled into peaceful expansion to find new worlds where all species can thrive. The transformation had been remarkable to witness. The Veshans, whose tentacled forms had once been feared across the galaxy as symbols of council oppression, now led mixed-species crews on exploration missions. Captain Grixeth, the former war marshal who had once called for humanity's extermination, now commanded the exploration vessel Unity, searching for habitable worlds where refugees from the war could start new lives. General Sung-Ho stepped up to address the assembly next. The human military leader had aged visibly during the war, his hair now showing streaks of gray, but his voice remained strong and confident. "We fight only when attacked," he announced. "But when we fight to win absolutely. The new Allied Defense Force isn't about conquest or control. It's about making sure that no species ever again has to choose between slavery and extinction. The crowd murmured approvingly. Many of the alien representatives had seen human military doctrine in action and understood what Sungho meant. Didn't fight to capture territory or gather resources. They fought to eliminate threats so completely that those threats would never return. In the audience, young alien cadets sat alongside their human counterparts, all wearing the new Alliance Academy uniform. These students represented the future beings who would grow up thinking of former enemies as friends, who would learn to fight not for conquest, but for protection. Cadet Thrix, a young Quellian whose parents had been slaves in the crystal mines, raised his furry hand to ask a question. "General, sir, my species was conquered because we only knew how to fight defensively. How do we make sure we're never conquered again?" Sungho smiled at the earnest young alien. "By learning that the best defense isn't just protecting yourself. It's making your enemies understand that attacking anyone means facing everyone. When the galaxy stands together, no force in the universe is strong enough to break us apart." Former Admiral Veltar stood up to address the assembly, his massive chromium frame towering over the podium. "The humans taught us something we had forgotten during our centuries of galactic dominance. War is not about destroying your enemy. It's about creating peace so complete that war becomes impossible." He gestured toward the mixed crews visible. Through the chamber's massive windows, where ships from dozens of different species worked together in Earth's orbital shipyards. "Look outside," Veltar continued. "Zephyrian engineers are installing shield generators designed by Valdris. Warriors onto exploration ships built with Quillian mining expertise and powered by human fusion technology."
Ow.
6 months ago, these species were trying to kill each other. Today, they're building the future together. The transformation extended far beyond just military cooperation. Alien medical knowledge was being combined with human adaptability to create treatments that worked for multiple species. Zephyrian crystal technology was being used to build communication networks that could instantly connect worlds across the galaxy. Theshan exploration techniques were helping locate resources that could support the massive refugee populations displaced by the war. Captain Nomsu, now an instructor at the newly established Terran War College, addressed a class of mixed-species cadets that afternoon. Human students sat next to young Zephyrians, Valdris, Quillians, and representatives from dozens of other worlds. "The greatest weapon isn't technology or tactics," he told them, looking at each eager face. "It's the willingness to stand between evil and the innocent, no matter the cost. Your species, your appearance, your homeworld, none of that matters. What matters is whether you're willing to protect those who can't protect themselves." A young Zephyrian cadet, her crystalline features still showing the arrogance typical of her species, raised her hand. "But sir, my people were taught that strength comes from dominance. How do we know this new way will work?" Namsu walked over to stand beside her desk. "Because, Cadet Zara, your people tried dominance for thousands of years, and where did it get you? A galaxy full of enemies and a war you couldn't win. We're offering you something better, a galaxy full of friends and allies who will stand with you when trouble comes." As the months passed, ships bearing the new Alliance symbol, a circle of stars representing unity among diversity, departed Earth for distant corners of the galaxy. Each vessel carried mixed crews who had learned to work together despite their differences, spreading the message that cooperation was stronger than conquest. The galaxy had finally learned why humans were considered the most dangerous warriors. It wasn't because they were the strongest or most advanced species. It wasn't because they had the best weapons or the fastest ships. It was because they fought for something greater than themselves and had the unique ability to inspire everyone around them to become better than they ever thought possible. The human spirit had transformed not just one species, but an entire galaxy. The understanding that true strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the courage to protect and the wisdom to unite, had become the foundation of a new age of peace and prosperity that would last for generations to come. The end.